Hello and welcome to Lecture 1 for ECU 311. This is the Camtasia recording. This is the first time I've ever done this, so let's see how this goes and let's hope that this works. So I'm going to talk first of all about the ACARA side of things, which is the assessing and reporting. You can see there the unit coordinator is Dr. Sharon Liers, and I am the internal lecturer, or the unit lecturer, Jacob Andre, not Linda Mahoney, but unfortunately I could not change this document and resave it. So if we go through, I'm just going to talk through this PowerPoint presentation. Then from there, what I'm going to do is to just go into LearnLine, and we're going to answer some questions there. Then go across to the Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander PowerPoint presentation on the arts. Go back to LearnLine. I'm going to talk about the discussion board, and then some arts and creativity within LearnLine with some questions. And then at the end, I'll talk about the assessments. I don't think you will need to turn up to any of the lectures. I can record this in a lecture, but I can also record this in my office like I'm doing right now. So I went across to the lecture, which we only had 2 people, so there's about 40 students in this class, and 5 of them are internals. So because we only had 2 people, we decided to go away. I'd record this and then I'll upload it. So I'll do this at 1 o'clock every Thursday for our lecture, and then I'll post it later on Thursday afternoon, so you can then access this anytime in your own time. Alright, so as for ACARA, I suggest you head across to the ACARA website. I'll talk about how to find that at the end of the presentation. If you want to skip through this, feel free to do so. You can go through this PowerPoint presentation in your own time. So we're talking about the arts. So the arts are responsible for the national curriculum with arts goes from kindergarten to grade 12. As you can see, National Assessment Program aligned to the national curriculum that measures students' progress, national data collection and reporting program that supports, and then analysis, evaluation, research and resource allocation, and accountability and reporting on schools and broader national achievement. The curriculum, ACARA leads national collaboration to produce the foundation to Year 12 Australian Told you it's the first time. Hopefully we don't have too many hiccups. The Australian curriculum sets consistent high standards for what young Australians should learn as they progress through schooling. I don't want to go into too much detail with this because you can quite easily read through all these slides on your own. And all states and territories have commenced implementation of the Australian curriculum for arts. ACARA has developed the foundation to Year 10 Australian curriculum in the following: English, Maths, Science and History, endorsed by all education ministers, and that happened in 2010. With Geography, it was endorsed by all education ministers in May 2013, and then the Arts was then endorsed by all education ministers in July 2013. So the state and territory based curricula in the Northern Territory is looked after by the Northern Territory Board of Studies, and you can see what is looked after by in those other states and territories. So the arts comprises these 5 areas: dance, drama, media arts, music and visual arts, and it's 3 of these 5 areas that you need to choose from to do your assignment 1, which I'll talk about later. So the rationale for arts. The arts have the capacity to engage, inspire and enrich all students, exciting the imagination and encouraging them to reach their creative and expressive potential. The 5 arts subjects in the Australian curriculum are dance, drama, media arts, music and visual arts. Together they provide opportunities for students to learn how to create, design, represent, communicate and share their imagined and conceptual ideas, emotions, observations and experiences. And I want you to consider whether you believe the arts are an important and necessary part of the curriculum. If you would like, you can then put your responses to that on the discussion board. There's a whole bunch of aims for the arts. If you just go through a couple, it aims to develop students' creativity, critical thinking, aesthetic knowledge, understanding about arts practices. It's all about making and responding, so you'll see that come up quite a bit with the arts, and you'll notice that's probably the first 2 dot points that come up in LearnLine. It's also related to increasing students' self-confidence. Arts knowledge and skills to communicate ideas so that students value and share their art and life experiences by representing, expressing and communicating ideas using their imagination and observations about the individual and collective world in which we live in a meaningful way. Arts also is very important in understanding Australian history and traditions, and we'll get into more specifics with that in the next PowerPoint presentation on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. Arts also helps us to understand the local, regional and global worlds we live in, art history and traditions, and engaging with the worlds of artists, artworks, audiences and art professions. These aims are extended and complemented by specific aims for each art subject. So there's the levels, the curriculum for each art subject, the strands. So you see I mentioned making and responding. Content descriptions in each arts subject reflect the interrelated strands of making and responding. So making includes learning about and using knowledge, skills, techniques, processes, materials and technologies to explore arts practices and make artworks that communicate ideas and intentions. And the responding is about including exploration and responding to, analysing and interpreting the artwork. So you've got the making of the artwork in each of those 5 areas from visual art through to dance, and you've got the responding, so how you analyse and interpret those areas. I'll let you read through this in your own time because they're pretty in-depth, these slides, with the amount of text that's on them. The general capabilities, there are 7: literacy, numeracy, ICT, critical and creative thinking, personal and social capability, ethical understanding and intercultural understanding. Cross-curriculum priorities, so we talk about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, as well as Asian cultures, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander component is very important for Assignment 1. What I suggested about Assignment 1 is that in the class with the 2 people that turned up to Maria was that what I suggest in your 3 lesson plans is to write it for an urban setting, but then when you do your justification, write it in terms of pretend you've taken yourself out to an Indigenous community and you're then transferring that lesson plan into that context. So arts can be linked to many other learning areas. They include English, history and geography, teaching, assessing and reporting, so you can work individually and cooperatively. Helps you develop skills such as curiosity, imagination, creativity and evaluation. Super important for success in life in general. And also engages all aspects of perception, which not all areas do. So sensory, emotional, cognitive, physical and spiritual. Very important, that last one, which doesn't happen in any other learning area as far as I can think. So in conclusion, make sure you check out that website. I'm going to take you to that right now. So if we head on over to LearnLine, here's the web page for the ACARA website, with specifically to do with art. I suggest you go and have a look at this in your own time. I'll just scroll through it quickly now for you, so you get a bit of an understanding of what to expect from it, a bit of an overview. Alright, there's those 2 dot points I was talking about, the 2 strands for arts and making and responding. The document talks about the year's foundation or transition through to grade 12. Why visual art? So I want you just to consider, and you can write this on the discussion board if you like, why visual art is so important. As we talked about in the PowerPoint presentation, visual art in particular, has been so important in the history of Australia through the cave paintings that you see through Kakadu, for example. So they're a way to transfer ideas from person to person and from generation to generation. It's not just the visual art which has been used to do this, but also the performing arts, so through dance and also through drama in acting out events. This happens all across the world. It's obvious in its link between parent and child bonding, community building, rituals and traditions, as well as honouring the dead and forming and strengthening your own identity. So it's a non-verbal form of meaning making and communication, is a means of self-expression, spontaneity, imagination, play, experimentation. It can enhance children's cognitive processes through problem solving, thinking, and using symbol systems to record their thoughts, ideas, and feelings, and is a language, a symbol system, a literacy, which is a visual literacy. And we'll talk about physical literacy in the second half of this unit when we get onto the health and physical education side of things. But art, just like PE, is a form of literacy. Art specifically is a visual literacy, whether that's through visual art in terms of drawing or painting, or in acting things out and dance. So a visual art lesson, so using your own resources from home or the library, display some painting or some prints. So these include, you can see there, and you can then go onto the discussion board and you can talk about this. Discuss each piece of artwork in the following way. So discuss why you chose that piece of artwork, the difficulty in doing such a piece if you made it yourself, or why you think it could have been difficult or easy for the artist and why. We've got spatial intelligence. So this intelligence represents the knowing that occurs through the shapes, images, patterns, designs, and textures we see with our external eyes, but also includes all of the images we are able to conjure inside our heads. If you're strong in this intelligence, you tend to think in images and pictures, and so this can be difficult to learn when there's a lot of visual stimulus coming in. So people who are very visual in terms of their thinking, so they see things in images and pictures, which a lot of people are, when there's competing images, competing information for the eyes to take in through the sense of sight, it can be very difficult to concentrate and to learn. Keep that in mind for your visual students, as well as in mind for your kinesthetic students in terms of feel, and your auditory students in terms of hearing. You are likely very aware of objects, shapes, colours, textures and patterns in the environment around you. You probably like to draw, paint and make interesting designs and patterns, and work with clay, coloured markers, construction paper and fabric, but not exclusive to those. Okay, we go through this Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander presentation. I do not claim to know everything about this, or even a lot for that matter, but I'm going to do my best to pass this on. So, the importance of arts to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture and its spiritual connection to land. It's obviously super important. So art can be done on bark, canvas. Today it's done all sorts of things, including paper. It's done on rock walls. In the 50s and 60s, it was mainly produced for the missionaries and the anthropologists, and it was placed in museums and formed part of collections. Aboriginal art is the oldest living continuous art tradition in the world. I feel very lucky to be living in Australia, a country where that comes from. So the dreaming, so you notice that a lot of European, Caucasian people from a European background have a linear idea of life. The dreaming is all about the cyclical nature of that, so it's about going, where's my cursor? So going around, and it's continuous. So the dreaming is a basis of all aspects of life in traditional Aboriginal society. So you can see the land is super important. You've got rituals, body painting, sacred objects, songs. This is used to songs are used to pass on information, but they're also used in men's and women's business in terms of initiation. Dreaming stories, So passing on stories of how we came to be, where we're from, languages, social control. So you can imagine, and if you can't have never imagined, just take a couple of moments to imagine what it would be like to live in a culture where your law is one thing in your culture, but something completely different in another culture, and the punishments that go with that. So you can sort of get a bit of an idea of understanding in terms of Indigenous incarceration rates when there's just so many social factors going on, which, the things that we see in society, which are still so strong today. For example, the stolen generation is just so recent, and it's very difficult to say things that I hear so often, like just get over it, when there is just such a strong emotional attachment to those adversities that some people had to go through in very, very recent times. In some cases it was them personally, and in some cases it was their parents or their grandparents. Social organisation, so kinship, obligations of what's expected of you for where you are in your culture. The division of labour, people, technology, hunting and gathering, plants, animals, totemic sites, spirit beings, celestial bodies, cave paintings, and territorial rights. So the different styles of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander visual art. So you got rock art, bark art, dot style paintings, linear paintings, carvings using wooden tree trunks and branches, ground paintings. You might use blood, very interesting, fibres from different things, feathers, body paintings. This is obviously used a lot in ceremonies, also in funerals. And contemporary art, which is the type of art you often see in museums, and then more recently digital art. So rock art was a way of recording events. So you can see there on the right the cave painting of a Macusson boat coming down to Australia from Asia somewhere to pass on that information. So it's a historical recording of evidence. So you've got engravings, where they've actually engraved into the rock, and hand stencils. So blowing the paint onto the rock wall over their hand. And that's from the Northern Territory, that photo. Got rock paintings. Rock art of mythological figures. So just passing on events, stories of events that have occurred, but passing on stories. Beliefs. There's some examples of bark painting, dot painting, and if you've ever had a go at dot painting, you'll acknowledge just how difficult it is. And if you haven't had a go of it, I really suggest you have a go, and to use the back of a paintbrush. It is extremely difficult, and how they get all those dots the same size that many times is absolutely unbelievable. The fine motor control is phenomenal. Contemporary art. So the techniques, so we've got rack art, so cross-hatching. It's a style of art which can be mainly seen on flattened pieces of bark, and it's using fine lines and crisscrosses. Again, just like the dot art, if you haven't had a go at this, have a go of it. It is so hard to get. How they get those lines so evenly spaced apart is just amazing. Dot art is made with the end of a satay stick or the end of a brush. Your paintings using ochres, acrylic paints, oils, watercolours, feathers, blood, fibre, and other objects, anything you can find essentially. Stenciling, so spraying over your hand, and it might be blowing the paint from your mouth onto your hand. Speckling is another technique which is used for backgrounds, linear painting or brushstrokes, of course new art, film and photography, and then cloth. Techniques: painting on paper and cloth, glass, ceramics, plastic, cement, stone, burning, body painting, a applied with the hands to make marks across the body, ground paintings, and sculptures. Wood, shells, nuts, and anything else you can essentially find. Here's some examples of techniques. There's some other styles, other art forms. It's just amazing the different types of art. So you've got musical art, so playing the didgeridoo, clapsticks, and you've got the dance art, so performing a dance. Symbols used in dot art, so what all of those symbols mean there. So when you see them on a piece of art, they've actually all got a meaning. So one of the ones you see very often are those U shapes, man or a woman, being a U, and being upside down U, looking more like an N, is a man or a woman sitting. So you see them quite a lot, as well as the campsite, the big circle diagonally down to the right. Okay, so we've got ideas for integrating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. Did I just skip? Ideas for integrating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art into the classroom, so you can go and collect some of your own ochres, so small little rocks that you can grind down. You can wet them and then use them for paint. Students can create images using the crushed ochre powders. This is very, very helpful for your assignment 1. So you can use board and cupboard squares as a base, and then you can, from there, grind down your rock. You could even use your charcoal if you want black. You can make brushes from hair, so you can use this from horse hair. Buy it from somewhere. You can get human hair. I suggest you probably don't cut it off the kids' hair. And you can use plant stems for a similar effect. Have students visualize themselves looking from above and then draw their house or backyard, so they can draw or their favourite swimming place, Berry Springs, say for example, and look at the different symbols and tracks which are mainly used in the dot paintings from the centre. So if you go back to that slide that I was on before, and you can get them to draw a story, so you can incorporate some form of literacy. Whoops, where is it? On this one here, and you can get them to create a story, so using those symbols to create a story in their art. You can get a group of students to work together, do a sand or a ground painting, body painting potentially, draw an image of a figure, then paint somebody some designs on the figure. Try some weaving. You can call in someone to help you with this. This is a very, very difficult skill. You can produce a large map of Australia to show students where the different areas are that the art forms originate from. And there's a textbook down there that can help you with further information. There's the map of Australia marking the areas where the different styles of art come from. And there's plenty of these maps around. Different materials for painting. You see the bark coming off the tree there. Respecting Indigenous heritage. Respect Indigenous control, communication, consultation and consent, interpretation, integrity and authenticity, secrecy and confidentiality, attribution and copyright, proper returns and royalties, continuing cultures and recognition and protection. Alright. So if we head back over to LearnLine, we go down the scribble stage. So I want you just to consider for a moment the scribble stage. If we look at the 4 different stages of the scribble stage, you've got pre-schematic stage. So the early years child still scribbles but with identifiable shapes. The schematic stage with segmented body parts and much better control. So that's the fine motor control I talked about a little bit earlier. Number 3, the realistic stage, great interest in detail and comic characters, and then the visual realism or crisis period, so struggles with proportion. There's lots of frilly borders and the child is not confident or happy drawing. So I want you to head on over at some point to the discussion board. Make sure if you haven't already, you introduce yourself in the Student Cafe, and I'll get to that. I haven't had much chance to get onto that for ECU 311 just yet, but I will get to that and have a look and respond to as many as I can. Just also you can see that there's a spot here for your questions for the assignment. But if you, for this week, go to Week 1 Part A, what is your philosophy of arts and education? And at the start of this lecture I talked about, do you believe that art is important and necessary in the curriculum? So with a little bit more information there, I want you to really consider the following. So should the arts be compulsory in all schools? At the moment it's not, but it is very, very valuable, not only for developing creativity and imagination, but also for reducing stress, and not just in students, but also in you as the teacher and you in life. I want you to also answer in this area, should students have access to all 5 arts in the Australian curriculum at school? So that was the dance, drama, visual art and so on. When should students first formally learn the art? So we're all talking about the early years, so should they start learning about that formally in transition? Should it be later? I know with PE, some schools don't run PE lessons for their transition students. They don't start until grade 1. Is that the case with art? Do some schools start at a later time? Do they start in grade 1? I know that I've got 2 sons, one in transition and one in grade 1. I've actually got more than that, but I've got those two sons, and my youngest one, one of those 2 who's in transition, is doing art at the moment, and he struggles to sit in his chair. So, but he loves his art. Anytime at home that he gets to be creative and make something with his hands, he absolutely loves it. Should there be art generalists and or specialists in schools? So a lot of schools do. The school I'm talking about where my son goes does have an art specialist. Not all schools do though. And should it be compulsory, a compulsory part of the curriculum? What would you do if the arts were cut from the curriculum at the school you were working at? Would you be disappointed? Would you be outraged? Would you be happy? And I want you to include that in your responses there on the Week 1 Part A forum. Alright, back to LearnLine. We don't have much. This will be the last part that we talk about before we head over to talk about the assessments. Okay, so I want you to watch this video. I'm not going to play this. Oh, actually, I might play it now. I'll play it for you. If you are watching this, feel free to fast forward. If you've already seen it or you're going to watch it at a later date, but I'll play it for you now to watch.
So is Alita Andre really a painting prodigy? Let's put that question to Peter Gagliardi. He is the curator of the Gagliardi Gallery in London. Peter, thanks for your time. Good to talk to you. Tell me why you've called her work extraordinary.
Well, I can say that without a doubt, Alita Andre is a genius.
What if actual art critics were calling your toddler's work brilliant?
Well, that's exactly what happened to one 4-year-old. That's right, 4 years old. Her paintings are selling for more than, get this, Dan, $20,000.
Está compitiendo con Picasso y cuyos cuadros se venden a más de 20. Lo que pinta Aelita Andre.
A 2-year-old girl who took the art world by storm is set to assume an even bigger stage.
The 2-year-old girl is Australia's latest art sensation after her abstract painting.
She's the tiny tot who's dividing the art world. 3-year-old Alita Andre is being hailed a genius, a Pee-wee Picasso.
По уровню таланта этого художника сравнивают с ранними Пикассо и Кандинским, то за именем Аэлита Андре.
Here's Amanda Miller with a story about the next big thing. in the abstract art world.
The Guardian newspaper describes them as vivid abstracts full of movement and dazzling colour, or Jackson Pollock Reborn, says Panorama magazine. Elita's exhibition opening made headlines around the world.
I made observations about them saying they're incredible paintings. I thought they were a little bit Orientalist, the very bright red. I thought that maybe they displayed a sort of gestural vivacity that was like calligraphy in those traditions.
TV crews from Japan, China, Germany and the UK have come to see for themselves.
Jackson Pollock didn't figure out his technique until he was in his 30s, but this little girl's found her groove at 4 years old.
She does understand composition, she understands color.
Elita Andre isn't like most children. She's got her own solo exhibition at a gallery in New York.
Like that, and like that, and like that. It's going to be so exciting!
At just 5, Elita is the world's youngest professional painter. The critics say her bold style gives us an idea of what's going on in a child's imagination.
They possess something quite magical by virtue of the involvement of that child.
Here's how she describes her paintings.
They're not realistic. They're like space, and they don't look really much like space. They look abstract.
Fantastic. Now I've seen these paintings and they're everything that I imagined. They're joyful, they're happy, spontaneous paintings.
Elita, who's from Australia, is already being compared to the likes of Jackson Pollock. She's a little girl with a big future ahead of her.
There you go.
Welcome everyone to my secret universe.
The difference in her process is that it's completely uncensored. She is not in any way influenced by education or other artists. It's completely primal, subconscious on her part. And yet it's very consistent, which is what I believe makes her this amazing artist.
Hello, my name is Elita, and all things in my painting area are really magical. when I'm painting my paintings, I just do them with abstraction. Abstract painting is really special.
If, for example, they had been painted by an adult, we would say, wow, they're amazingly liberated gestures.
But the best thing is just paint and watch sunrise in your own way. When I just appeared in Mummy's tummy, I started painting on a canvas in Mummy's tummy. And I paint abstract, you see.
Please welcome to the stage, Alita Andre.
Okay. What did you reckon? Consider, apart from what your reaction is to this, what's the potential of children as artists? If you've got children, could they be artists? And what would you do if you were her art teacher at school? Imagine if this little girl, Alita, turned up and was in your class and you were teaching her as her classroom teacher, or as her art, if you're a specialist art teacher, you're her specialist art teacher, or just generally you had to teach her art as part of it being her classroom teacher. Interesting ideas. Okay, the assessment. So we've got 2 assessments for this unit. I'm just going to grab some documents and I'll show you this. So we've got the unit information. Make sure you've got that unit information document of what to expect for the unit. You've got the set text, which is Teaching the Arts, Early Childhood and Primary Education by David Roy, William Baker and Amy Hamilton. It's the 2nd edition, and flick through that. I suggest with the textbook, unless you absolutely love reading and you're a very, very good person at learning things from reading, I suggest that you go and do the review questions at the end of each chapter. So read the conclusion for each chapter and then go and answer all the review questions. At very minimum, read the conclusion. If you can, also do the review questions. That will help to focus your attention on information, but also make the information sort of more strongly entrenched in your mind. You only remember about, I can't remember what it is, 10 to 20% or something of what you read. So by actually interacting with it, engaging with it, you will learn a lot more. And then also, of course, teaching it. Once you start to teach something, you're then putting it into your own. You strengthen those connections because you are not only learning it, you're learning it deep enough so that you can then pass that information on, but you're also making those neurons, those little brain cells, interact in a different way because you are putting it into your own experiences, drawing upon your own experiences to learn it in order to be able to pass that information on and teach it. So go through and read the conclusion, go through and do the review questions, and then there's also little activities throughout. So go and do those activities throughout each chapter. With the units, you don't have your engagement on the on the discussion boards of LearnLine is not marked, but it's 50% for each assessment, and there are 2 assessments. But I do highly suggest that you do jump on and you do interact on the discussion boards. So you've got with the discussion boards, let me go down to them. Each week you've got topics to engage with. So next week, for example, you've got arts and creativity. Watch those videos. I absolutely love that video. This is one of my favourite videos on the internet, and Sir Ken Robinson is amazing in terms of not just creativity, but also with transformative education. And his information goes right beyond the school setting, goes right into the wider community and the world in general. So there's all these topics here to engage with and respond to. So I just believe that if you do hop on, you comment on, answer those questions and engage with these. If you jump back on and you engage with other students, that's great. But at the very least, please try and jump on and respond to the forums which have been created there for you, because it will just make you such a better teacher once you get out into the workforce, because you'll have all that broader knowledge. Okay, so just let me quickly go back to this one. I'm just going through this on a document so you can pull that up yourself, but you've got Module 1 and Module 2, so of course Module 1 is the arts. Actually, I'll come down on here for you so you can can see it on here. So Module 1 is the arts, so you've got the arts portfolio for assignment 1, and then Module 2 is health and physical education, all for the early years, and you've got assignment 2, which is a coaching resource portfolio and lesson plans. And of course there's 3 lesson plans in the arts portfolio. Here's what we'll go through each week. So we've got weeks 1 to 6, which are all on the arts. So we'll be using LearnLine. The group discussions, we'll be doing a discussion board for that. I'll be doing each week this Camtasia recording, and we'll also be doing a few Collaborate sessions throughout the semester. So I'm looking at probably 4, possibly 5, and the first one will be next week. So next Thursday from 3:30 to 4:30 Darwin time, Central Standard Time. We'll be doing that Collaborate session. So make sure if you don't know how to jump onto Collaborate that you speak to LearnLine. I'd imagine that by 3rd year you probably do know how to. Probably know better than I do. Alright, so assignment is due on Friday the 7th of April, which is week 6 at 11:59 PM. If you do see that written anywhere else, it will only be because it says week 6, Friday the 14th of April. That, unfortunately, I can't change any of that. I can change it in certain places of LearnLine, but I can't change some of the documents because they've been approved. So, being a new lecturer to this unit, I've tried to go through and make sure everything is streamlined and exactly the same, and Sharon's been doing the same, but there may be some things that have slipped through. But rest assured, the assignment 1 is due on the 7th of April, which is week 6 at 11:59 PM. Okay, the arts portfolio. So this is worth 50%. It's 2,500 words, 2,000 words for the, or thereabouts, or equivalent, depending on how you're doing it, for the lesson plans and so on, and then 500 words for the justification. So the purpose of this assignment is to prepare you for delivering an arts module in the early years of approximately 3 lessons. And this will provide you with a range of skills in order to know what materials and resources to use to teach the art. So for the arts portfolio, you will need to contain exemplars of work. You will need to develop ideas for application in a learning and teaching environment, and you'll need to use written resources required for you to deliver the module. So there's 3 lessons. It's of approximately 45 minutes each. And it's expected that you'll do at least 3 of the 5 art forms. Typically when you're out there teaching, you might probably not do in 3 lessons 3 different art forms. You'd probably end up spending 5 weeks or even 10 weeks on a art form. But it depends on the circumstance and your situation. But for the purpose of this assignment, and there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't teach 3 different art forms in 3 lessons, but those 5 art forms are visual arts, media arts, dance, drama and music, and so you need to do at least 3 in those lessons. So for example, let's just say we're going to be focusing on Indigenous art. We're going to teach Indigenous art. You might be telling a story, and you might be starting it off with a book, creating a book which has got visual art in it, or it might just be even just a 1 document visual art, and then you then perform, you create a dance to go, as you then make music to go with that, and then you create a dance to go with that. Another example, topics can include your animals, your family, your neighbourhood, a book or story which you've engaged with in the past. You can look at this example in here, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. If you're looking at a book in your literacy, for example, in your outside of art in your class time, you might then use, this is a perfect example of how you would then use that in art. So you might design your own picture of the hungry caterpillar. You might then turn that into some music. So clapping is very good for early childhood children, and then turn that into a drama performance or a dance, or some form of media arts even. So when we were talking about this in class earlier, we were talking about using the neighbourhood you grew up in, and just say you lived in a small cul-de-sac and it was very nice and cozy. It was very safe to go out and play on the street. You might draw a picture of that, what that looked like as lesson 1. Then lesson 2 might be to make a song to go with that, or a drum performance. And then number 3 might be some sort of like music to go with that. So songs that you might have sung. From there, you could then create that, say, for a school, an urban school in Darwin, like Allawa, for example. And then when you're doing your justification in the 3rd point where it says, how would you include students from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander backgrounds, think about how you would then teach that if you were to go out to an Aboriginal community, just say Tea Tree out near Tennant Creek, or Owen Pelly out near Daly River. How would you teach that? So it would probably change in the way you teach it, and it will also change in the context of things. So the art portfolio is to create 3 lessons and make sure that you have at least 3 of the 5 art forms. You can choose the theme, but keep the theme and make the lessons build upon the last. So that's why I actually said earlier, just before I just said do your dance and then do your music. You'd probably have your music before your dance, because then you can incorporate any visual arts. If you did visual art first, you can then easily turn that into a musical, like a song or a tune or rhythm that you create, and then you can incorporate both the visual art and the music into a dance, which you then, for example, in real life, students would then perform at the assembly, say for example, to demonstrate their work, and they might have the art up around the side. So you need to then do a 500-word justification. Justification will provide you with the opportunity to explain why you chose that topic. So what the importance and meaning of that is for you. So it's really valuable that you choose a theme that has a meaning to you, and why you chose those art forms. So in this area is where you will include how it's linked to the Australian curriculum, how you would include students with diversity, and then how you would include students from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander backgrounds, and that's what I spoke about. Just for that, pretend that you're taking your lesson, you've just got a job and you're going out to an Aboriginal community, and how would you teach that there? So references APA Style 6. If you've got any questions on the assignment, make sure you head on over to the discussion board, and Sharon has kindly set up assignment 1 queries. We'll be talking about this in class, so whether you're an internal or external, you can come along. It's in Red 6.1.08 from 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock on Thursdays. We are no longer going to be doing our lectures because we've only got 5 people enrolled internally and only 2 turned up today, so we decided that we wouldn't do them. We'll run them like this with the Camtasia session where I run it from my office. But on week 4 Thursday, we will be having an opportunity to come in and discuss the assessment in detail. So if you're interested, make sure you come along to that. Alrighty, that's all I've got to say. The other assessment, I'm just going to touch on this, don't worry too much about it at this stage. The other assessment is just let me pull it up. Oh, there's the rubric, so I suggest you have a look through that rubric. So you've got 60% demonstrated techniques used in the early learning setting. So let's just go through high distinction. So an arts portfolio has been presented where you have presented at least 3 of the arts in activities appropriate for an early childhood setting, executed a wide range of arts concepts, selected a suitable theme for an early childhood setting, and developed an appropriate and engaging arts activity. So it's really, really important that your activity is relevant for the age that you're going to be teaching it to. And that's why I really like the neighbourhood. Just think of what you did at that age. So if you're doing it with grade 1 students, who are typically 6, what were you doing at the age of 6? And use an example from that period of your life. And also provide exemplars of the arts appropriate to that age. Number 2, justify the task with focus on practices specific to your own ability, its application to a pedagogical environment, and reference to policy documents. So a high distinction would be looking like a justification of the arts portfolio presented where you've discussed the creation of the module Insights into Art Practice, connected the task through demonstrated knowledge and understanding of research into how students learn within these areas and the implications for teaching them. This is where having the textbook and referring back to the textbook will really help you, as well as the readings. And I'll show you those readings in just a second. and applied current curricula and policy documents to learning and teaching through the early years. And another one down here, demonstrated knowledge and understanding of strategies for learning and teaching in differentiated classroom contexts, demonstrated knowledge for integrating and utilising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture within these areas, and incorporated the set and recommended readings as well as reference to the wider learning and teaching literature. And make sure you communicate in academic writing for 20%. Assignment 2, I'm not going to talk too much in depth with this one, but it's worth 50%. It's a resource folio and plans for sequences in learning experiences, and it's in relation to health and physical education. So you're going to design and justify 3 teaching resources from a range of topics in Module 2, Health and PE. Include a description of the connections between the topics and resources, and be clear about the focus on the age level targeted. Task 2, develop a sequence of 3 learning experiences incorporating at least one created resource from Task 1. And there's your rubric. I won't go into too much depth with that one. Okay. References, you can go through and you can check out these references if you like. They're all related to the unit. To find the readings. Where is my other document? So you've got your set text there, and you can also find e-readings on here at the electronic reserve, and the other reading is the one by G. Graham, Teaching Children Physical Education. So that's in terms of the health and physical education side of things, so for Module 2. Alrighty, make sure you familiarise yourself with the unit information, the set text. There's some extra things you can go off and look at for this module here. Definitely the ACARA, these additional readings I was talking about, definitely the ACARA website. Read through that. And then you've got those PowerPoint presentations down the bottom for the ACARA one, and then the next 2 are for next week. Alright, if you've got any questions, please leave in the discussion board, and I hope you have found some value out of this. If you don't like it, let me know. If you think I need to change something, let me know. And if you love it, make sure you let me know so that I continue doing it. And I, of course, will be checking all of those comments in the discussion board area. Alrighty. Thanks for joining me.